Hello, class. Hello, how are we? Welcome, welcome. Come on in and find your seats. My name is Mr. Aegis. For those of you who are new in our classroom, I will be your homeroom teacher. I stream first-time playthroughs and teach you a little bit about health and wellness and self-care. So come on in and find your seats. How is everyone? How have you been since the last time we saw each other on Saturday? How was the rest of your weekend? Hello, Yasha Hibiki. Hello, Rousey. Hello, Blue Solaris. Hello, Almost Pirate. It's good to see you all. I hope you've been well. How is the volume for everyone? Good volume. Thank you very much. We are at 25% complete for our monthly goal to get me to play Five Nights at Freddy's. Let me get these spitballs off of myself. Pirate, you've had a pretty decent weekend and you finished up Dark Souls 2. Fantastic. I believe that's the hardest one of the three. I do not know, of course. Our Elden Ring sessions have been my first exposure to the FromSoft games, to the Soulsborne games. You've said, Almost Pirate, you say it's the least fun one so far? I see, I see. It's about the challenge though, isn't it? I certainly have still had a busy, restless weekend. Still had to get things taken care of with my phone. But now at least I have it and I can get it all set up. And my little Galaxy Watch that I can set up now too. Remember folks, tonight we are talking about overstimulation. That will be the topic of our learning session before we move on and play some more Ace Attorney. So, for today's icebreaker question. Today it happens to be National Gingerbread House Day. I'm sure that we'll be talking about holiday-themed things all throughout the month, so I don't want to harp on those things too much. So let's talk about snacks and candy in general. Gingerbread houses. What are your favorite non-traditional, sort of not chocolate chip, not oatmeal raisin, cookie type things? You know, ginger snaps, those little lemon things that the Girl Scouts sell. What's your favorite one of those types of things? Personally, I really like macaroons or macarons or however they pronounce them. Meanwhile, I'll be getting set up in the background here for our lesson. Pirate, you say the peanut butter cookies, but not the ones with chocolate. Yeah, sometimes I do find that peanut butter and chocolate together, while really good, can be a little bit too much, you know? Blue Solaris, you only ever eat and bake chocolate chip cookies? Well, when you find what you like, you know, stick with what you know. Since we'll be talking about online and overstimulation, a little fun fact today. Google was initially named Backrub. That was the original name for it. I can't for the life of me figure out why. Oh, the ads ended for you, Ralsei. I didn't even think I had ads running. Is that a setting I need to change? I know I made affiliate some time ago, but I haven't really made any changes to that. I didn't really do this to make money, and I probably won't, but... Let's see, what else? I think I'm just about ready to get our lesson started, if you all are. Ralsei, absolutely. If you want to talk about something, let's talk. We haven't started the lesson yet, that's all right. And even if I had, I would want to hear what you have to say. Good evening, Bit Shepherd. Welcome. Good to see you. Just waiting for a moment. I think we might have missed your first post, Ralsei. I think it might have cut off the first half of that question. That's all right. Let me just get us to the lesson screen here while you're typing. So you got a message from someone on a dating app. Intended as harmless flirting, but the other person took it as serious. They took a screenshot and shared it to laugh at. That's very distressing. I'm so sorry. And people thought that if you had a problem with that, that was a you thing. I think an important note to make on anything like that is everything is overblown by people when it comes to online interactions. They're taken to an extreme in order to, I guess, be as stimulating as possible for people, to get people's attention. No one should be screenshotting things that you say on social media to be used as attacks against you. I know we've talked about concerns with difficulty reading social cues, so I suppose it's something that if you are questioning, if you're not sure, if you are about to be engaged in a conversation that's you're missing something about, you can certainly reach out to your friends like myself and get some second opinions on what the intentions might be and what the cues might be that you're missing. Certainly people should not be making you feel unsafe. Not on Tinder or anywhere else. But certainly not, there's nothing about you or what you've done that's making you strange or a freak. And yes, indeed, I see that they're, validating each other. But honestly, it's, for a lot of people, high school never ended. And they take social media as a way to, if they were in the cool kids table, to stay there. And if they weren't, it's their chance at a second high school experience, more or less, for them to get the opportunity to be a big fish in a small pond among their circle. And it's not your fault. That is not something you've done to earn that or deserve that. It's an unfortunate side effect of the social media environment. They would likely do that to others, which is very distressing to think of in itself, because someone else might be in that position later. Oh, yes, that high school mentality, you say, makes you afraid of being sincere, and that's been something noticed by a couple of researchers as well, and I think you're right. The backlash against sincerity and any earnestness that people have, earnest interests, sincere, caring about certain things, and a backlash against being emotionally vulnerable. And while there has been some, I would say, performative perhaps, or even insincere lip service paid in modern society to, it's okay to feel emotions. It's okay for men to feel emotions now that people are starting to come to that opinion. But it is just lip service. And when people see someone genuinely expressing emotions, genuinely being vulnerable, those old, I guess, traditional views on it still dominate. We have a surface acceptance of people being sincere and earnest and vulnerable. But it's not something that we've really internalized yet. And it's certainly not something that society has come to a majority opinion about. It's something people like to say because it makes them seem, I guess, progressive or understanding or empathetic. But I don't really think that we're there yet. And I think your point that you're making there about people being seen as weird and cringe, I think that's a whole lesson in itself that I would like to talk about. Weirdness and cringe. It's something that I started writing about. People don't really understand that being weird is just being normal. Whatever thing that you do that people think you're weird for, there are people that are subjectively weirder. But if you turn and throw stones at the people you think are weirder, that's not going to protect you. People aren't just going to draw a line in the sand and say, okay, you can be this weird but no weirder. You will be lunch next from the wolves. They're not going to stop at the people you think are a little weirder than you. The people you think are weirder than you or cringe are the canaries in the coal mine. When you see them being harassed or abused or ostracized, you should understand that you're next. You stick up for the people who are considered weirder or outsiders or ostracized or loners, because that protects yourself. You should do it just because it's the right thing to do and be nice to people. But it's because expanding the boundaries of what is allowed, the ways we're allowed to express ourselves and the hobbies we're allowed to have and the interests we're allowed to pursue openly and sincerely, it's because expanding those boundaries is good for everyone. The weird ones are the ones who are on the frontier. They're the ones pushing the bounds of what expressions are allowed in society. There's a whole galaxy of experiences to be had, and to limit someone else's, to limit what other people are allowed to experience, or the ways that they're allowed to express themselves, or to be weird, to be strange, to be eccentric, to be cringe. You know, you're the one that will be cringe about something later. If you limit someone else, you're limiting yourself. You don't need to put any artificial boundaries on people, or to say that this is as cringy as you're allowed to be, and no more cringy than that. Well, I think maybe we should have a whole lesson on that sometime in the future. Perhaps I will prepare us a lesson on that topic and we can talk more about it. Indeed, you are correct. To constantly be on the lookout for cringe, to put it down so that you seem more normal by comparison. Yes. It's a little bit like the monkey experiment, you know? I don't know if you've heard of that. I don't know if this was an actual study, but it's a thought experiment. Some researchers, they put 5 monkeys in a pen, and they put a ladder in the middle of the pen, and they put a banana hanging up above the ladder where the monkeys could reach it. And each of these monkeys had a shock collar. So this would have been an experiment from some time ago. And the monkeys, they saw this banana and they started climbing up to go get it. And every time they started climbing the ladder to get it, they'd get a shock. Very quickly they learned that going for the banana equals getting a shock. Makes enough sense to them. So then they removed one of the monkeys and replaced it with another monkey. A monkey without a shock collar. That monkey had never experienced a shock and didn't know that going for the banana meant getting a shock. So that's what they did. But of course, all of the other monkeys knew, if any monkey goes for that banana, we all get a shock. So the new monkey goes for the banana, and all of the other monkeys grab them and pull them off of the ladder and abuse them. That monkey quickly learns to not go for the banana. But they learn that for a very different reason. Not because they'd get a shock, but because the other monkeys would stop them. They would ostracize them from the little pack. The researchers kept doing this. They'd pull out one of the original monkeys and replace it. And whenever they did this, they found that those new monkeys immediately joined in with the original monkeys in pulling the newest monkey off. Even though the new monkeys didn't know why they were joining in and pulling these monkeys off the ladder. They didn't know why they weren't allowed to go up. Eventually, all of the original monkeys were gone. There were 5 monkeys in the pen, none of them with shock collars. None of them had ever experienced a shock. But they all knew not to go for the banana. They introduced a final new monkey. It goes for the banana, and all of the monkeys join in pulling it off the ladder and stopping it. None of the monkeys knew why they were acting this way. It was just the way that they were acclimated. They did it because that's what they did. That's what the monkeys who did it before them did it. They were conditioned to do it that way. And that's the way a lot of online interaction is. You'll see a lot of people, especially on social media, reacting and posting in a template sort of way. Recycling the same jokes, the same formats of posts, the same grammatical structure. Trying to outdo each other. It's really monkey see, monkey do when it comes to online interaction. But that's not really what we're here to talk about today. We've got a little bit different topic. We have a little bit different topic, but it is related, and we'll talk extensively about social media on Thursday, which, of course, will be the day for our first collaboration. Our collaboration with our friend, Caramel Bandit, our Vtuber friend, Caramel Bandit. Yes, indeed. That will be fun. That will be our first time collabing with someone else. We'll grow our little learning community. Yes, indeed. Blue Solaris, Crozy, Kros. You're welcome, Ralsei. I'm happy to listen. Bit Shepherd, you're in this picture. Which are you? Are you Jake? Are you the monkey? All right, class. Let's get started with our lesson for the evening. Of course, today is Monday, December 11th, except it's not. It is Tuesday, December 12th, and our topic is overstimulation. We're going to start off with that deep breathing exercise, just 3 minutes. Then we'll go over our lesson, we'll review our behavior chart, and then we'll play Ace Attorney before we get into our wrap-up. So let's do this. Let's do this breathing exercise that we've been doing for the past few sessions. No, no more tabs, Bit Shepherd. No dozen tabs today. So we're going to do this breathing exercise that we've done a few times, where we breathe in for 4 seconds, we hold it for 2 seconds, and then we breathe out for 6 seconds. It's that simple. It's a good way to start off our lesson, and it's a good way to start off the day, and right before bed. But in case you weren't here with us before, the way we do our diaphragmatic breathing, our daily breathing exercise. You sit up straight and tall, with your shoulders back but relaxed. Put your feet flat on the floor, and you're going to put one hand, or claw, or paw, or whatever you have, on your abdomen, just below the breastbone, and another hand on your chest. And when we do our breathe in, you breathe in slowly and deeply through the nose. And at the top, you hold it gently for 2 seconds. And on the exhale, you exhale slowly through your lips for 6 seconds. And that's it. 4, 2, 6. You want to be breathing from your diaphragm, that is, the muscle that's below your lungs. As we've talked about, we often breathe very shallowly and very rapidly from the chest, but the majority of our lungs and the capillaries and the surface area for absorbing oxygen are deep down in our lungs, and we don't give them enough time to really pull all the oxygen out of the air. It leads to a lot of problems in our health and our psychology. We can talk about that again in a review later if you like. But it's important most to apply this skill. So I'm not going to give you a count. We're going to start learning to do this on our own. I'm just going to tell you in to start breathing for 4 seconds. I'll tell you to hold for 2 seconds. And then you can start to exhale over 6 seconds. Completely empty your lungs. So I'm going to give you a moment to get ready and get yourself into a comfortable position sitting. And when you're ready, I'll give you a little countdown of 3, 2, 1. And then you'll start your first inhale. We'll just do 3 breaths. Just follow along and give me 3 breaths. All right. So, get yourself ready. And 3, 2, 1. In. Hold. And out. And in. Hold. And out. And in. Hold. And out. There we go. Just 3 good, deep breaths to start off our lesson. And as we've talked about, you should start off your day with it as well. Sorry for that. And those 3 breaths, 12 seconds each, it's 36 seconds. If you can get 5 of those breaths in a row, that's 1 full minute. 5 breaths in 1 minute. I think we typically breathe about twice that fast. We breathe so much faster than we should. We don't get as much oxygen to our brain and our muscles, and it leads to increased anxiety, less stress tolerance, a whole host of other problems we've talked about. So I keep harping on it. Give yourself a good minute or 2 of deep, slow breathing in the morning and at night before you go to bed. So, now we can get started with our lesson on overstimulation. So, we're talking about what's called comprehensive overstimulation. And it is definitely harming our brains. But what is it? It's the constant stream of input that we have to all of our senses. We're immersed in it. We're constantly flooded. We live in a sea of sensory input, bombarding our eyes and our ears, even our taste. And of course, it's just getting faster and faster. Finding faster and faster and more efficient ways to deliver it right into our eyeballs and our eardrums. It's getting more and more intense. The flashing lights and sounds are louder and brighter and faster all the time, and we're typically getting them from a bunch of different sources all at once. This is similar to what's been happening with food over the last few decades. It's becoming more intense and more artificial. There's a lot more unnatural flavors and artificial sugars, unnatural fats, things that we're just not designed to absorb. We spend an average of about 7 hours a day looking at screens. We will see or hear over 1,000 or more ads every day. We'll hear hundreds of different songs and jingles that can get stuck in our head. And the volume we listen to things at is usually about 70 decibels, which, by the way, 70 decibels is the volume at which damage starts to occur to our ears. And we're usually engaged in multiple high stimulation activities at once. Can someone tell me about some of the multiple stimulation activities they might be involved in at one time? You might be doing it right now. I do it all the time. It's no shame to say it, to go ahead and admit it. You might be watching this while doing something else. You listen to audiobooks while driving, Bit Shepherd. Well, not the worst 2 combinations of things. Not the worst 2 combinations of things. Certainly there are some things that we can do successfully together. But there are some things that can really give us some problems. This might seem familiar. There's a meme here of when the food is getting cold and you still haven't found a YouTube video to watch while eating. I think most of us would admit that we're guilty of that sometimes. Instead of just, watching the YouTube video and paying attention to it, or enjoying the food and focusing on that. Or this little meme here with the Subway Surfers video overlaid on another movie. Being stuck in high stimulation traffic, cars blaring, engines rumbling, people walking with their phones open, being bombarded with ads all the time, constantly being on the lookout for messages and notifications. Watching rapid changing meme compilations, I'm sure some of us have done that. And up here, a student doing their homework while watching TV. Like the last paper I saw said that over 60% of students say that that's what they do. And some people might say that it's multitasking. Well, some people think multitasking is good for you, but the research shows pretty definitively the opposite. We learn quite poorly when we're multitasking. We don't retain the information well, and both of the activities, or 3 or 4, are all done more poorly because we're doing others while we're doing that one. Multitasking. Yes, indeed. It is more than just work. It's more than just how many activities you're doing during the workday or school day. It's consuming all different kinds of media all at once, and constantly switching which of those that we're focused on, if we're focused at all. Having a bunch of different things at once, all vying for our attention that we're swapping to rapidly. It is self-reinforcing. It increases our need for more and more sources, more and more options all at once. Our sense of instant gratification. Whether it's TV and movies, social media, music, games, messages, work, all kinds of that. Bit Shepherd, you say you're 100% guilty of waking up, checking Discord, comic updates, scrolling Reddit? Oh yes. See, some of those things can be effectively worked together if they're not too high strain activities that don't need too much attention. But are we taking the time to really enjoy things? Yasha Hibiki, you don't watch videos while doing coursework, but do listen to some music. There is some research saying that some good background music is effective in helping with memory and retention. It really is a matter of, are you paying attention to the music or to the task at hand? If you're paying attention to the task at hand, then the music can be amplifying. If it's low intensity, low demand music, I tend to listen to instrumentals. I do that when I work out too, so that my focus is on the exercise and not on the music. Bit Shepherd, listening to anything but the voice in your head. I think therein is a big crux of the issue then, right? People have that mentality of, I need to have something on in the background. They don't want to just be alone with their thoughts. But this does give us a considerable load on our mental capacity. And hello, Nomakin. Welcome. It's good to see you. This can really overwhelm our resources because our attention is not infinite. We have a certain amount that we can give at any given time. And it really increases the demand on our brain's metabolism. Our brain's oxygen demands. Like the things we've talked about with our breathing practice. I structured these lessons so that sleep and breathing would be the first 2 lessons for a reason. Yasha Hibiki, yes. Listening to music without words so that you can focus on your task and not get distracted. Yes, exactly. You see, when we're constantly focused on a bunch of different activities at once, we're never actually focused. And this does have addiction-like effects. Of course, we're not talking about addiction in the clinical sense. It's a very specific definition. But there are similar overlapping effects. These things can actually change our neuronal pathways. And it certainly has an impact on our dopamine receptors and our ability to utilize it. And all that instant gratification, which ends up not being gratifying at all, leads us to be less patient. It alters our ability to have satisfying, meaningful interpersonal interactions. And it impacts the reward center of the brain. So what is it exactly doing to us? Well, I'm not going to quiz you on this. You don't need to remember these brain changes or these graphs. These are just for a visual cue. I don't give you tests. I don't expect you to remember detailed scientific information. This is a skills-based class. I want you to have some information to apply. But what the graph shows is a decrease in the ability to utilize dopamine and decreased dopamine release during activities. This is a brain of someone who has an internet addiction. And a gaming addiction, actually. They have both internet and gaming disorder. Some of the physiological changes, the physical things that are happening inside of our bodies. There are changes to the thickness of certain parts of our brain. The actual thickness of brain tissue is being affected by our constantly divided attention and our constant stimulation, our adrenaline constantly going whenever we see a message or we see something stimulating on the screen. Of course, it leads to fatigue and difficulty falling asleep. There's that sleep stuff again. Like I said, we did sleep as our first lesson for a reason. It increases our cortisol, blood pressure, heart rate, hurts our breathing. There are even some studies that show that because of the constant dopamine release, that it may end up leading to an increased risk of Parkinson's disease. But of course, it is also about our minds. It becomes harder and harder to stimulate dopamine release. We need more and more sources of stimulation, more and more intense sources. Harms our ability to pay attention, increases anxiety, reduces our stress tolerance. Like I said, can lead us to be more impatient with others. We end up repeating these behaviors. We end up being unable to do things like just sit down and eat without having a video to watch while we're eating. And it can lead to confusion about the real world. It can cause some overlap between the world we are constantly engaged in online and on screens and the world outside, which no longer seems as stimulating. What is to be done then? What can we do about it? For ourselves, at least. We can certainly advocate for changes to society. We could ban billboards, for example. I'll always say that whenever I have the chance. We could advocate for more public park space, more third spaces, more competency taught in school about these facts, less screen time given to students. But what can we do as individuals right now, as adults mostly? Well, the first thing I'll talk about is digital detox. It's a phrase you've probably heard before. I'll talk about it a little bit more after this. But this checklist of things, getting daily physical activity, especially if you can do it outdoors. Spending time in nature, even if you live in an urban environment, just being outside, doing one thing. Of course, developing hobbies that are outside of screens, even if it's just reading a book once a day for a half hour, or taking up drawing. You don't have to even want to be a great artist. You can just draw for the fun of it. Doing puzzles, playing physical games, board games, and like you see here, whittling, knot tying, juggling, I don't care what it is. Just something that you do with your hands in the physical world. Of course, developing more social connections, whether they're online or off, as long as they're real, meaningful connections. Of course, mindfulness activities, which we can talk about too. And I think that we will have a full lesson on meditation at some point as well. But the big one that you see here underlined at the bottom, intentional activities, single tasking. Oh yeah, you've heard of digital detox. It is something that's gone around now in the self-care world, I guess. I wish people would really open up and do it rather than see it as sort of a platitude or something to just, post on an infographic and say, digital detox, you should do it, it's good, or, AI generate an article, which I see all the time. Do people actually do the things that they're seeing these influencers and self-care gurus telling them to do? The first thing I want to talk about is intentional activity, because this This will impact anything else you do in that list. Oh gosh, you enjoy sketching and coloring, both two fantastic things, both really great because it is a physical thing you're doing with your hands and your mind. Of course, reading, very good. Going for walks, getting some exercise and some air, absolutely. The big key takeaway is doing one thing at a time. I suppose if you're listening to light music while you're doing something, it's not the biggest deal in the world. But doing one thing at a time, and doing that one thing well. Giving it your full and complete and undivided attention. Letting yourself enjoy it fully, getting as much enjoyment as it can give you. Giving it all of your attention so that it can give you all of its enrichment. It's like with breathing. Again, I did the breathing exercise, the breathing lesson second for a reason. It's like with breathing. When we breathe shallow and rapidly, we don't get that much benefit. When we breathe deeply and slowly, we get benefit. When we do activities rapidly and in a shallow way, we don't get that much benefit. When we do them deeply and fully, we're getting a lot more out of it. So for an intentional activity, pick one thing, one activity in your day where you just do that one thing. Plan for it. Set aside time for it. Luxuriate in that one activity. Give it your focused attention. Give it a purpose. Even if your purpose in picking up drawing isn't to learn to be really great at art, give yourself a purpose. I'm going to draw this thing, this X, this whatever thing I've picked today. And be mindful while you're doing it. Do any of you do anything like this? Have you tried doing an intentional activity in the past, or is this something that you've heard people talk about? Noma, you say you can't unplug from the computer until you're done. Well, I will say that if you're choosing gaming as something to do, if that's what you're giving your full attention to, and giving it the full benefit of your attention, then perhaps that's not so bad. So, what is digital detox? Digital detox is something that you can do either just as a one-time thing or in conjunction with planned, regular intervals of doing it. I think you should try both. It's, for example, a one-time hiatus from your screens as much as possible, minimizing any unnecessary digital time, besides the things you have to do for work or school. But you pick a length that you feel comfortable with at first, even if it's only for 2 days, or a week if that's what you feel comfortable doing. But think about it in advance, plan it out, make a commitment to those couple of days where you are going to limit consciously your input, your sensory input from screens and from messages. And think about what you're going to do with that time instead. Do some of those hobbies or physical things instead during that time. Thank you so much for the subscription, Cartoon Therapy. Thank you for rejoining the honor roll. And I see December is piling stress on you. Yes, indeed. This is really the reason I wanted to do this for all of us. I certainly needed to hear this message myself. As I've mentioned a few times with my phone being stolen, it's a very stressful set of events that was set off. A whole cavalcade, a whole cascade of things I needed to do. I'm glad that people are getting something out of our little sessions here. I hope that your stress is relieved soon. Another thing that people can do is reduce the number of apps you use in general, the number of programs and things you have on your computer, on your phone, a little digital decluttering. And be patient. It takes some time to adjust, both for the one-time hiatus and, say, setting aside a specific few hours a week. But like I said, start slow, build up. Bit Shepherd, you say, mid-COVID you had to break up with Twitter and the doom scrolling. Indeed. It's about a quarter as tough as quitting tobacco. Yeah, I would have to agree. I think I'm not the only one who has had the experience of closing a social media app and then 30 seconds later reopening it, forgetting that you had just been looking at it. And trust me, we will be talking about social media in depth on Thursday with Caramel Bandit. One of the other things I wanted to talk about is the outdoor activities. This doesn't need to be going for a hike or climbing a mountain. It can just be a leisurely walk, like Yasha Hibiki was saying, just taking a walk. You can do some light gardening. You can just keep a couple plants in your house and take care of them. The research is pretty clear about exposure to plants, exposure to green spaces. Basically doing the opposite of all of this multitasking for our brains and bodies. But you can go to the Arboretum, you can visit the zoo, go to the park, especially if you can combine any of these things with physical activity. I've heard the trope, and you've heard it too, about touching grass. It is true, but one thing that I've started to say instead is see sky. Even if you're not around a nice grassy area of a park, you live in an urban area or just not around anything like that, just getting outside and being under an open sky is enough to give us some benefit. And I've listed a whole host of the benefits here, but do I really need to go on with all of these positive things that we know happen? I think we get the picture. And then there are some of the other things that were mentioned in the checklist, like social connection. It's really about giving your full attention to those interactions. We might have a lot of acquaintances or even a lot of friends, but when we're talking to them, are we really talking to them? Are we really focused on the other person? Are we listening to what they have to say? Even if we're not in person, online interactions are fine. As long as you see them as a flesh and blood real person, living in the same physical reality that you do. Emphasizing the quality of your relationships over the quantity. And hey, another callback to another previous lesson. Last time when I talked at the very end about the importance of relationships. And especially showing interest in their interests. Encourage their hobbies. Encourage them to do single tasks. Hey, maybe you even join them in that single task. Doing single tasking with another person is such an incredible benefit, let me tell you. Oh, Yashi, you love visiting botanical gardens? Absolutely. Being surrounded by plants. It's such a great smell. Absolutely, totally agree. It is a little too cold for the beach right now for me as well. But I know when I had a friend visit, someone who has been in the class a couple times, one of the first things we did was we visited the Arboretum. We went to the botanical gardens and we walked amongst all the trees. It was a lot of fun. And then that topic of hobbies, of course. Literally anything you want. As long as it's something that it's your interest and what you focus on. And that when you're doing it, that's the thing you're doing. As long as it's for your personal enjoyment, not for work, not for school. And there's a little note about music, like we mentioned. Listening to music as a background activity isn't the worst thing in the world. But sometimes, when you're listening to music, just listen to music. Just soak it in and pay attention to the music and really get enjoyment out of it. Hey, that artist crafted that music for a reason. So what are some of the hobbies you enjoy? Some of the things you like to do and just focus on that one thing to really pour your attention into it. Noma, you enjoy listening to my lecture cadence? Well, I'm glad to hear that. I enjoy doing it. Bit Shepherd, you picked one up recently, mending socks. Not only is that a good single tasking activity, but also very useful. Saving yourself money on socks. Ah, Yasha, thank you for mentioning that. You're absolutely right. Parallel play. That is a very powerful thing, in fact. Like you say, even when you're doing separate things, you do feel more productive when you have someone there with you. You are developing and deepening social bonds, even if you're not doing the same thing. I'm pretty sure there's some good research on just being near and around other people in that social situation is beneficial. You're absolutely right. Parallel play is very good. Bid Shepherd might be mending socks, and I might be watering some plants. Noma might be cooking some food with the pickles that they love so much. Ah, Noma, you say you realize how bad your ADD is with your current job. It's very repetitive. Ah, yes. Yeah, concentrating on those singular mental tasks like programming. Indeed, indeed. This is just an infographic version that I will post for reference for everyone if they want. I know this isn't quite as, I don't know, aesthetically pleasing as some of the other infographics that VTubers post to draw attention, to grab people's interest, to get them to follow and get them to watch the streams. But I like to have a lot of good information. I want to present you with skills that you can use. Platitudes are nice. Little motivational statements are nice. But does it actually teach you anything? Does it actually get you to make any changes to your life? I hope that what we're doing does for you. But yes, hyperstimulation, splitting our attention, constantly being absorbed in and around and being bombarded with bright flashing lights, multiple sources of media all the time, having one screen open with messages and another with videos and another with a task we're working on, all simultaneously with our phone next to us in case we get some message there. The TV on in the background. It isn't just harmless and it's not just a joke. It is really causing you problems and hurting you physiologically and psychologically. And I really want to help with that. I really want people to learn that they can make small changes in their lives and improve their long-term health, their quality of life. Some of these effects are very serious. Some of that research that suggests that it might lead to an increase in things like Parkinson's disease, that's kind of scary. I want the best for all of you and for myself, so I hope that we will all take some of these lessons to heart and combine them with the ones that we had earlier, like sleep hygiene and breathing practices. Like I said, there's a reason I did these lessons in the order I did. So, what are your thoughts, questions, any experiences you've had with this? And will you be doing any of these things tomorrow? Will you be putting any of these things into practice? Or maybe you'll just continue to do some of the things we've done before. Maybe increase the amount of that breathing you do in the morning and in the evening. Progress doesn't have to be linear and it doesn't have to be constant, but a little bit each day. Cartoon therapy you'd like to, and you find that when you're stressed, some strange internal aversion to doing these things, even if logically you know they'll help. Absolutely. I can fully understand. I was driving today to the old phone carrier to get something taken care of, again, because they screwed up. And I knew that I was breathing rapidly, and I knew that I was breathing shallow, and that I was tense, and that I was stressed, and I knew I should breathe deep. I should pause. I should take some breaths. But it was like an addiction. It was like I wanted to continue being stressed and angry, as if it was giving me some kind of cathartic release, even though I know academically, even though I know on the surface, I know that that's not correct. Oh yeah, so you learned a bit about diaphragmatic breathing a while back? Yes. Always doing it before bed. Yeah, and trying it in the mornings too. I think it helps to start your day off on the right foot. Instead of, like, when I wake up in the morning, I'm immediately worried about, okay, I have to do this lesson plan, and I need to go to the phone store, and I need to make a couple calls, and I have a couple emails to answer, and my friend needed me to message him, and I need to message Caramel Bandit. Instead of jumping immediately into all of my tasks for the day, pouring them onto my brain. Cartoon therapy, I would absolutely love that. I would love to talk more about this message and all of the topics we've gone on. Bit Shepherd, Sunday you will clean the bathroom in a non-resentful manner. Appreciate that it is gross, put your full effort in, and then appreciate that it is clean. Yes, take a mental picture of what it was like before you cleaned. And then when you're done, appreciate just how much work you did and how sparkling clean and good you feel about doing it. Hey, remember in the last class we talked about sanitizing and cleaning our space? Very good. You see how it all ties together?